Room 307 at the Skylight Hotel in Addis Ababa was supposed to be a sanctuary of romance. Instead, it transformed into a horrific crime scene on what should have been the fifth day of Abebe and Meskrum's vacation. The white cotton sheets, once pristine, now told a savage story, crimson stains spreading outward like a macabre map, marking where Meskrum took her final breaths. Hotel staff discovered her body at 11:42 a.m. after repeated unanswered calls to the room. A chambermaid's scream echoed down the corridor, alerting guests and security alike. Meskrum lay still, her body bearing 27 separate knife wounds. The bathroom mirror was shattered, shards scattered across the tile floor like frozen teardrops. A broken wine bottle rested nearby, its contents mingling with darker fluids. The door showed no signs of forced entry. The "Do Not Disturb" sign had hung undisturbed for nearly 16 hours. In the corner, a small suitcase remained packed, ready for a return journey that would never happen. A cell phone screen periodically illuminated with incoming texts, concerned messages that would forever remain unanswered. And somewhere in the bustling streets of Ethiopia's capital, Abebe had vanished, a husband now fugitive, leaving behind only questions and a blood-soaked confession scrawled on hotel stationery. What drives a man to murder the woman he vowed to love forever? When Abebe stood before family and friends, promising to cherish Meskrum until death parted them, nobody imagined he would be the agent of that separation. Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal from someone you trusted completely? That moment when something sacred shatters, leaving only raw, unfiltered emotion in its wake? For most of us, such betrayal leads to heartbreak, perhaps divorce, but rarely murder. Yet certain betrayals cut deeper than others. When trust, family, and honor collapse simultaneously, even the most controlled individuals can reach breaking points beyond imagination. In Ethiopia, where family bonds carry profound weight and masculine honor remains tied to female fidelity, Abebe's discovery of his wife's affair would have been devastating. But when he learned his own father was her lover, something fundamental within him fractured, igniting a sequence of events that would end in bloodshed. Before we continue this disturbing journey through passion, betrayal, and murder, take a moment to subscribe to True Crime Dossier. Each week, we examine real-life cases that reveal the darkest corners of human psychology and potentially arm you with knowledge that could protect you or someone you love. These aren't just stories, they're cautionary lessons hidden within tragedy. The warning signs you'll learn to recognize might save a life someday, possibly your own. Hit subscribe now, activate notifications, and join our community of critical thinkers who understand that awareness is the first step toward prevention. Because in true crime, knowledge isn't just power, it's protection. Abebe highly grew up in the northern highlands of Ethiopia, in a small village outside Gondar. The eldest son of a respected local businessman, he carried the weight of family expectations from childhood. After completing university in Addis Ababa with a degree in economics, he returned to Gondar, where he opened an import-export business dealing in coffee and textiles. Meskrum Tedesse came from the southern region, her family well-connected in Hawassa's hospitality industry. With striking features and a warm personality, she stood out in social gatherings. Her education in hotel management led her to a position at Gondar's premier tourist accommodation, where fate eventually connected her with Abebe. Their worlds intersected at a business function in 2018, where Abebe was seeking partnerships for expanding his enterprise. By Ethiopian standards, both represented the emerging middle class, educated, ambitious, and straddling traditional values while embracing modern aspirations. They established a home in Gondar's newer district, a modest three-bedroom house with a small garden. Their social circle consisted primarily of other young professionals, doctors, business owners, and government employees. Sundays meant church services followed by traditional coffee ceremonies with neighbors, while weekdays revolved around building their respective careers and planning for the future. Abebe and Meskrum's courtship lasted 8 months before their families approved their union. Their wedding combined traditional Ethiopian customs with contemporary elements, a lavish affair that, according to friends, seemed to genuinely celebrate deep affection rather than mere social obligation. In public, they presented as the ideal couple. He respectful and proud, she supportive and charming. They addressed each other with terms of endearment and frequently arrived at events hand in hand. Yet behind closed doors, subtle power struggles emerged. Abebe, raised in a patriarchal household, expected final authority in decisions. Meskrum, though outwardly deferential, quietly exercised influence through strategic compromises. Their intimacy fluctuated. Initial passion gradually yielded to routine. After 2 years of marriage without children, questions from relatives created pressure. Fertility concerns became whispered topics at family gatherings. Abebe's mother particularly made her disappointment known, questioning Meskrum's suitability while emphasizing her son's responsibility to produce heirs, especially sons, for the family name. By early 2022, Ethiopia's economic challenges hit the couple directly. Political instability in the north affected tourism, diminishing Meskrum's income as fewer international visitors arrived. Simultaneously, currency fluctuations complicated Abebe's import business, with several shipments delayed at ports due to payment verification issues. Their savings dwindled. Arguments about expenditures became frequent, Meskrum suggesting household budget cuts, while Abebe resisted reducing appearances of prosperity. The pressure mounted when they were forced to postpone building a larger home they'd already announced to friends. The vacation idea emerged during a rare moment of reconciliation. Despite financial constraints, both recognized their marriage needed rejuvenation. Addis Ababa offered anonymity away from Gondar's close-knit community and prying eyes. The capital's growing hospitality sector meant competitive rates at upscale hotels. Meskrum secured an employee discount through industry connections. With the modest package finally affordable, they viewed this 5-day getaway as an investment in their relationship, a chance to reconnect without daily pressures. 3 incidents hinted at troubles beneath their polished facade. First, at their anniversary celebration, Abebe publicly thanked Meskrum for her patience regarding temporary setbacks in expanding their family. Comments that left her smiling rigidly through tears. Second, Meskrum began taking evening walks alone, sometimes returning with unexplained absences in her timeline. Finally, Abebe's father called increasingly often, conversations that Abebe would take privately, returning with visible agitation. Most telling was their packing for Addis Ababa, separate suitcases packed separately, minimal consultation about activities, and a distinct absence of the playful anticipation that typically precedes romantic getaways. They departed Gondar with forced smiles, each harboring unspoken expectations for what awaited. Tekel highly arrived at the Skylight Hotel on the second day of the couple's vacation, unannounced and unexplained. At 63, he retained the commanding presence that had built his regional business empire in Gondar. Silver-streaked hair framed a face weathered by decades of negotiation and authority. His designer suit and gold watch, conscious displays of wealth, contrasted with his son's more modest attire. The couple had just returned from an afternoon exploring the National Museum when the hotel receptionist approached with news of a visitor waiting in the lobby. Meskrum noticed Abebe's jaw tighten when his father rose from a leather armchair, arms extended for an embrace. "My son, and beautiful Meskrum, what fortune to find you here." His explanation seemed rehearsed. Government business brought him to the capital unexpectedly, and he'd learned of their stay through a family connection. More surprising was his revelation that he'd booked a room on the same floor, merely 4 doors down from theirs. "We'll make it a family holiday," Tekel announced, already instructing a porter about his luggage. Abebe's questioning glance toward Meskrum went unanswered as she welcomed her father-in-law with the customary respect. Her smile, however, carried a warmth that her husband's lacked entirely. Dinner that evening became a performance of formalities. Tekel dominated conversation, detailing business expansions while questioning his son's more modest achievements. When Abebe mentioned recent challenges, his father dismissed them. Obstacles become opportunities for clever men. Meskrum's attempts to change subjects were repeatedly interrupted by Tekel's questions about her career. Questions that felt less like interest and more like evaluation. Yet when she answered, his attention seemed unusually focused, his compliments slightly too effusive. Physical positioning told its own story. Tekel consistently placed himself beside Meskrum rather than his son. When she excused herself briefly, both men watched her departure with uncomfortably similar expressions. By evening's end, Abebe had consumed 4 whiskeys, uncharacteristic for his usually moderate habits. Meanwhile, Tekel's hand had found reasons to touch Meskrum's shoulder or arm 7 distinct times, each lingering moment noted silently by his son, whose smile grew progressively more strained with each glass emptied. In traditional Ethiopian families, hierarchy remains fundamentally important. Elders receive pronounced deference, with fathers maintaining authority over adult children even after marriage. Sons historically seek paternal approval well into middle age. A daughter-in-law occupies a complex position, expected to honor her husband's parents as her own while navigating loyalty conflicts. Physical boundaries between in-laws typically remain formal and distant, particularly between fathers-in-law and daughters-in-law. Family reputation transcends individual concerns, with perceived disrespect causing profound shame. Public confrontation between generations violates social norms severely, forcing disagreements underground where they often intensify without resolution. Most critically, a father's relationships define family harmony. Any disruption to these connections threatens the entire social structure surrounding Ethiopian marriage and kinship networks. Have you ever noticed something off about a family member's behavior? That moment when instinct tells you something isn't right, but you can't quite identify why. The human mind recognizes threatening patterns before our conscious awareness can name them. These instincts evolve to protect us, yet social conditioning often persuades us to ignore them. Share your experience in the comments. When did your instincts warn you about someone close? What subtle signs did you notice? Did you confront the situation or let it pass? Your insight might help someone else currently questioning their own perceptions about a family member's concerning behavior, possibly preventing a tragedy similar to what unfolded in this Ethiopian hotel. The morning after Tekel's arrival, Abebe received an urgent call from his Gondar office requiring immediate attention. As he stepped away to handle the crisis, Meskerim and her father-in-law found themselves alone at breakfast. Their conversation shifted from polite formalities to personal confidences. Tekel leaned forward, voice lowering when he asked about her happiness. His attentiveness contrasted sharply with his son's recent emotional distance. "My son doesn't appreciate what he has," he murmured, eyes holding hers a beat too long. When their hands accidentally touched reaching for the coffee pot, neither withdrew immediately. That momentary contact, innocent yet charged, marked a boundary crossed. Later that afternoon, Tekel encountered Meskerim returning from the hotel pool. Water droplets still clung to her skin as she adjusted her wrap. His gaze lingered, assessment unmistakable. Rather than turning away embarrassed, she smiled. "You look beautiful," he said simply, no pretense of fatherly affection in his tone. "Thank you," she replied, voice softening. "No one has told me that in some time." Abebe remained oblivious, preoccupied with business calls. That evening, Meskerim spent extra time preparing for dinner, selecting jewelry she'd previously reserved for special occasions, applying perfume with careful attention to pulse points. In Ethiopian society, few transgressions carry greater weight than betraying family bonds. The relationship between father and son holds particular sanctity, a connection representing continuity, legacy, and masculine honor. For a woman to come between them violates fundamental social structures. A daughter-in-law traditionally relates to her husband's father with formal respect and appropriate distance. Their interaction follows strict protocols, with physical contact limited to ceremonial greetings. Emotional intimacy remains forbidden territory, considered dangerous precisely because of its disruptive potential. Ethiopian Orthodox Christian teachings explicitly condemn such relationships as grievous sins. Community response to discovered affairs of this nature typically involves complete social ostracism, not just for the guilty parties, but often extending to their extended families. The shame radiates outward, contaminating reputations across generations. For Meskerim, raised within these cultural expectations, even acknowledging attraction to Tekel would constitute internal transgression. Ethiopian women face harsher judgment than men for sexual impropriety, a double standard embedded in cultural practices that emphasize female virtue as family honor. The taboo nature extends beyond religious prohibition into practical concerns. Such relationships permanently fracture family systems. Children born from such unions face confused lineage and identity. Communities view these situations not merely as personal failings, but as fundamental threats to social order itself. Forbidden attractions often ignite precisely because of their prohibited status. The neurochemistry of transgression creates powerful cocktails of dopamine, adrenaline, and cortisol, stimulating reward pathways similar to addictive substances. Each secret exchange, each hidden glance, reinforces neural pathways associated with anticipation and excitement. Psychological factors creating vulnerability to such attractions include power imbalances. The authority figure, Tekel, offers validation that carries heightened significance. For Mescarum, his approval represented something her husband could never provide, validation from the patriarch himself. Emotional neglect. When primary relationships lack attention or affirmation, individuals become susceptible to anyone offering these missing elements. Mescarum's unfulfilled emotional needs created receptivity to Tekel's focused attention. Oppositional behavior. Pursuing forbidden relationships sometimes represents unconscious rebellion against restrictive social structures. The very forces designed to prevent such attractions paradoxically intensify their appeal. Identity expansion. Forbidden relationships often occur during personal transitions or identity crises. Mescarum's professional setbacks and reproductive pressures created psychological vulnerability. Proximity and familiarity. Regular contact in intimate settings normalizes interaction, gradually eroding boundaries. The hotel environment, away from community oversight, removed external constraints that typically maintain appropriate distance. Most crucially, forbidden attractions rarely begin with conscious intent to transgress. Small compromises accumulate incrementally, each seemingly insignificant until boundaries suddenly collapse entirely. Throughout the third day, visual signals revealed mounting tension. Hotel security footage would later capture these telling moments. Tekel repeatedly checking his watch before appearing coincidentally in the lobby when Mescarum returned from shopping. Mescarum adjusting her hair whenever Tekel entered rooms, unconscious preening responses. Their bodies progressively decreasing distance during conversations, starting at formal separation but ending with mere inches between them. Most revealing, Abebe repeatedly positioned between them physically while they maintained eye contact across his body, literally placing him between them while figuratively excluding him from their connection. The hotel elevator camera recorded a critical moment. When alone briefly, their hands touched, fingers interlacing for 3 seconds before doors opened, forcing immediate separation. The transition from attraction to action occurred on the third evening of their stay. Abebe, exhausted from resolving his business crisis, retired early with a migraine. Mescarum volunteered to join Tekel for dinner in the hotel restaurant to avoid wasting the reservation. They selected a secluded corner table. 2 bottles of honey, wine dissolved remaining hesitation. Their conversation turned increasingly intimate, Tekel confessing his long-time admiration, Mescarum revealing marital disappointments. Their knees touched beneath the tablecloth, neither moved away. After dinner, Tekel suggested viewing the city lights from the hotel's rooftop garden. In that isolated space, surrounded by potted plants and distant traffic sounds, physical boundaries collapsed entirely. Their first kiss, tentative, then urgent, lasted only seconds before Mescarum pulled away, conflict crossing her face. "This is wrong," she whispered, not moving further from his embrace. "Yet it feels inevitable," Tekel replied, hands framing her face with surprising tenderness. Their second kiss erased remaining resistance. Hotel camera footage shows them entering his room at 11:42 p.m., her departure occurring at 3:17 a.m., furtive, checking the empty hallway before hurrying to her sleeping husband. In later police interviews, hotel staff recalled seeing Mescarum's expression as she returned alone from dinner, a mixture of guilt and exhilaration that one waiter described as the face of someone who has crossed a line they cannot uncross. Their affair required elaborate choreography given their proximity to Abebe. They developed a system of seemingly innocent text messages with coded meanings. "Have you seen my blue scarf?" meant Tekel's room was available. "The museum closes at 4, indicated when Mescarum could slip away. Dinner reservation confirmed signaled all clear for evening meetings." They exploited Abebe's predictable schedule. His morning workout at the hotel gym provided 30 minutes of safety. His afternoon business calls, conducted poolside for better reception, created additional opportunities. They never entered or exited rooms together, maintaining a precise 15-minute separation. Hotel staff unwittingly became accomplices. Mescarum befriended the housekeeping manager, ensuring service times aligned with their needs. Tekel generously tipped waitstaff, who then conveniently forgot to mention whom they'd seen dining together when Abebe inquired later. They established legitimate alibis for absences. Mescarum's fabricated spa appointments and Tekel's non-existent business meetings created documented explanations for their disappearances. When together in public, they maintained appropriate physical distance, saving true intimacy for private moments. Most effective was their strategy of occasionally including Abebe in activities, museum visits or group dinners, creating an impression of normal family interaction while exchanging glances and brief touches beyond his awareness, hiding their connection in plain sight. Meskrum's journal, recovered from her luggage, reveals her psychological struggle. Initial entries show sharp self-recrimination. What kind of woman betrays her husband with his father? I've become something contemptible. This disgust quickly transformed into elaborate justification. She framed her actions as consequences of Abebe's emotional neglect. He sees me as property, not a person. His father truly sees me. She detailed perceived slights, Abebe's criticism of her appearance, his preoccupation with business, his public humiliation regarding their childlessness. She created false equivalencies. Everyone has secrets. Abebe's emotional abandonment is its own form of betrayal. Her writing shows classic cognitive dissonance, redefining her self-concept to accommodate behavior that contradicted her moral framework. Most revealing was her romanticization of the affair. With Tekel, I feel truly alive. This cannot be wrong when it feels so healing. She recast her actions as self-discovery rather than betrayal. I've lived my life for others. This is the first choice I've made purely for myself. Her final justification employed fatalistic reasoning. Some connections transcend ordinary rules. What exists between us was inevitable. Fighting it would deny something written in our stars long before I met Abebe. These rationalizations constructed a narrative where she became the protagonist rather than the transgressor. Psychological shelter from mounting guilt. While this Ethiopian tragedy seems exceptional, research reveals disturbing patterns of familial betrayal worldwide. 13% of divorces cite in-law infidelity as a contributing factor, according to the International Association of Relationship Research. Family-based infidelity causes more psychological trauma than other affairs, with 78% of betrayed spouses developing PTSD symptoms compared to 41% in non-familial cases. Intergenerational affairs occur across cultures, but increase in societies with strong patriarchal structures where older men maintain authority over younger family members. Children who discover parental infidelity with family members show higher rates of trust disorders, with 65% reporting lifelong relationship difficulties. Violence follows discovery in 27% of these cases, nearly triple the rate of violence following non-familial affairs. The average intrafamilial affair lasts 18 months before discovery, significantly longer than the average 6-month duration of other extramarital relationships. Most disturbingly, 63% of perpetrators report they would repeat their actions despite knowing the devastating consequences. By the 4th day, Abebe began registering discrepancies in Meskrum's behavior that his preoccupied mind had initially dismissed. Her morning routine shifted. She now rose earlier, spending unusual time selecting outfits and applying makeup before he awakened. Their customary morning embraces became briefer, sometimes avoided entirely with excuses about not disturbing his rest. Her physical responses transformed as well. When he touched her shoulder during dinner conversation, she flinched slightly, an involuntary reaction quickly masked with a smile. Her eyes frequently drifted toward doorways or checked her phone, attention fragmented when he spoke. Most troubling was her newfound criticism of his mannerisms. Comments about his laugh being too loud or his business stories boring other guests. These remarks often came after time spent with his father, as though seeing him through different eyes. Their intimacy changed dramatically. She claimed exhaustion from sightseeing when he initiated closeness, yet seemed energized during breakfast conversations with Tekel. Twice he noticed her wearing perfume to bed, something she'd never done before, the scent stronger than what she'd applied that morning. The most revealing change came in her voice, a particular softness when addressing his father, a tone Abebe recognized with growing unease. It was the same gentle cadence she'd used with him during their courtship. The first concrete evidence appeared accidentally. While Meskrum showered, her phone repeatedly chimed with incoming messages. Glancing at the screen to check for emergencies, Abebe saw his father's name with a preview. "Missing you already. When can you?" He resisted checking further, but mental inventory of recent events suddenly sharpened. 3 times Meskrum had claimed spa appointments, returning with neither receipts nor the relaxed demeanor such treatments typically produced. His father's business meetings coincided precisely with these absences. More suspicious messages accumulated. "The view from my room is better. appeared when Tekel supposedly discussed property investments. Wear the blue dress tonight preceded a family dinner where Mescarum arrived in exactly that outfit, claiming the choice was spontaneous. Hotel staff unwittingly confirmed his fears. A waiter mentioned enjoying their conversation yesterday afternoon, when Mescarum claimed to be shopping alone. The concierge referenced helping your wife and father with directions, during time frames when both claimed separate activities. Most damning was the elevator security camera footage Abebe glimpsed while waiting in the lobby. A monitor briefly showing Mescarum entering his father's floor at 2:17 a.m., a time when she was supposedly sleeping beside him. Reviewing his memories, he realized he'd awakened alone that night, her return to bed occurring around 3:30 a.m. Abebe cycled through stages of denial despite mounting evidence. His mind created increasingly implausible explanations. Perhaps they planned a surprise for him, or discussed family business they didn't wish to worry him about. Each alternative narrative collapsed under logical scrutiny. Sleep abandoned him. Appetite vanished. Conversations became minefields of potential revelations he simultaneously needed, yet dreaded. His concentration fractured during business calls, costing him a significant contract opportunity. The psychological toll manifested physically: tension, headaches, stomach pain, hands trembling slightly when pouring coffee. Most agonizing was the constant loop of questions: how long? Why his father? What deficiency in himself had driven her to such betrayal? If you're finding this story as disturbing as I did when first researching it, hit that like button. Your engagement helps others discover these critical lessons about relationship psychology and betrayal warning signs. Human relationships operate on trust, making betrayal uniquely devastating, especially when it involves multiple broken bonds simultaneously. The biochemical impact of discovering infidelity actually resembles traumatic brain injury in brain scans, explaining why betrayed partners often describe feeling unable to think clearly. What's your perspective? Would you notice these warning signs in your own relationship, or might they slip past your awareness during daily life? Have you ever experienced that gut feeling something was wrong, but couldn't immediately identify what triggered your suspicion? Like this video to help our algorithm reach people who might benefit from understanding these psychological patterns. Sometimes recognizing warning signs early can prevent situations from escalating to the tragic outcome that awaited this Ethiopian family. On the fifth day, a hotel maintenance issue proved fateful. Water damage in Tekel's bathroom required workers' attention, prompting him to request temporary use of Abebe and Mescarum's shower. Abebe generously offered their room while he attended a business lunch. Mescarum, claiming a headache, had declined joining him. His meeting ended early. The potential investor never arrived. Returning to the hotel at 1:42 p.m., Abebe decided to check on his wife's condition. Approaching their door, he heard muffled laughter, a sound that stopped him momentarily. Inserting his keycard, he pushed the door open quietly. The bathroom door stood slightly ajar, steam escaping through the gap. A man's voice, unmistakably his father's, murmured words too soft to distinguish. Mescarum's answering giggle contained an intimacy Abebe hadn't heard in months. He moved forward with mounting dread, each step deliberate on the carpeted floor. Through the bathroom doorway, the mirror revealed their reflection: Mescarum and Tekel standing chest to chest. Her hands rested on his bare shoulders while his fingers traced patterns across her collarbone. Both wore bathrobes, his father's partially open, his wife's loosely tied. They didn't notice him initially, absorbed in their conversation. Tekel brushed wet hair from Mescarum's face, a gesture of casual intimacy that stopped Abebe's breath. "If only we had met first," his father said, before he did. "We have now," Mescarum replied, rising to her toes to kiss him. The door creaked as Abebe's hand gripped the frame. Both turned simultaneously, expressions transforming from passion to shock. The towel in Mescarum's hand dropped silently to the floor. Tekel stepped backward, colliding with the shower door. Mescarum's mouth opened, but produced no sound. For 3 complete seconds, the tableau held, 3 people frozen in a moment that would destroy them all. "How long?" Abebe asked, voice unnaturally calm. When neither answered, something within him fractured. He slammed his fist against the wall, the sudden violence startling all 3 of them. "How long have you been sleeping with my father?" Mescarum flinched, clutching her robe tighter. "Abebe, please." 3 days, Tekel interjected, stepping forward with hands raised placatingly. "Son, this isn't what Don't call me son. Each word emerged precise, controlled, a dam holding back catastrophic pressure. Not while wearing my wife's scent on your skin. Mescarum began crying, tears tracking mascara down her cheeks. I never meant to hurt you. Abebe laughed, a hollow sound without humor. Yet you chose the one person guaranteed to destroy me completely. Tekel attempted to approach, reaching toward his son's shoulder. Abebe knocked his hand away with such force that his father stumbled backward. You raised me to respect you, Abebe said, voice breaking. To honor family above all. Was this a lesson too? Teaching me how meaningless those values truly are. We can discuss this reasonably, Tekel suggested, authority returning to his voice. Reasonable. Abebe's expression transformed. Like how reasonably you seduced my wife in my own hotel room? Their explanations dissolved into chaotic justifications, each word deepening wounds beyond healing. In Ethiopian culture, this betrayal transcended personal heartbreak. It represented complete destruction of Abebe's social identity. A man unable to maintain his wife's fidelity faces community judgment. But when that infidelity involves his father, the humiliation becomes intolerable. Ethiopian masculinity centers on patriarchal respect. Sons demonstrate worthiness by upholding family honor. Tekel's actions symbolically castrated his son twice, stealing his wife while simultaneously demonstrating Abebe's inadequacy as both husband and son. The public dimension compounded this shame. Hotel staff had witnessed their interactions. Word would inevitably spread in Gondar's close-knit society. Business associates would whisper about the man whose father claimed his wife. Religious leaders would cite their story as moral warning. Most devastating was the cultural understanding that a father-in-law holds quasi-paternal responsibility toward his son's wife. Within Ethiopian family structures, this relationship carries sacred boundaries. Tekel had violated not just marital sanctity, but fundamental kinship taboos central to community cohesion. These cultural factors transformed personal betrayal into catastrophic social death. Abebe's psychological collapse followed a classic traumatic response pattern. Initial discovery triggered acute stress reaction, fight-or-flight activation flooding his system with cortisol and adrenaline. His uncharacteristically calm questioning represented dissociation, emotional detachment protecting his psyche from overwhelming input. Three psychological factors created perfect conditions for violent decompensation. First, simultaneous betrayal by his two closest relationships destroyed his support system precisely when most needed. This betrayal blindness shattered foundational assumptions about reality itself. Second, masculine identity threat activated primitive brain regions associated with territorial defense. Neural pathways evolutionarily linked to violence when sexual partners are claimed by rivals. Third, the father-son competition aspect triggered Oedipal conflict dynamics, ancient psychological patterns involving paternal rivalry for maternal figures. These factors combined with cultural shame elements to create cognitive dissonance so severe that his psychological defenses collapsed entirely. When reasonable integration of experience becomes impossible, the mind sometimes seeks resolution through elimination of the source of contradiction, a phenomenon psychiatrists term psychotic break with homicidal ideation. The legal distinction between premeditated murder and crime of passion hinged on Abebe's actions following discovery. Hotel records proved critical in this analysis. After the confrontation, security cameras captured Abebe exiting the hotel at 2:17 p.m. His destination, a local market approximately 1.4 kilometers away. Surveillance footage shows him examining several kitchen knives, eventually purchasing a 20-centimeter blade with bone handle, paying cash rather than using his traceable credit card. This deliberate weapon acquisition suggests planning. However, Abebe's behavior displayed contradictory elements. He made no attempt to conceal his identity during the purchase. He returned directly to the hotel, knife poorly hidden in his jacket, actions inconsistent with calculated murder. His room entry method revealed further complexity. Rather than using his key card, which would create an electronic record, he claimed at the front desk to have lost it. The replacement card created a new access log, potentially obscuring his return time, suggesting awareness of evidence creation. Most compelling was the hotel bar receipt. Between confrontation and murder, Abebe consumed 5 whiskeys in 90 minutes. Alcohol quantity inconsistent, with clear-headed planning, but potentially functioning as chemical courage. These contradictory elements created legal ambiguity. actions suggesting both deliberation and impulsive rage, planning alongside emotional chaos, a hybrid state particularly dangerous in its unpredictability. Between confrontation and murder stretched 7 critical hours. After purchasing the knife, Abebe returned to the hotel but avoided his room. Security footage tracked his movements through public areas, 40 minutes sitting motionless in the lobby, staring at the elevator his wife and father occasionally used. At 4:38 p.m., he entered the hotel bar. Receipts documented progressive alcohol consumption, initially ordering drinks singly, later requesting double pours. The bartender later testified that Abebe repeatedly checked his phone, expression darkening with each glance. Text message records recovered from Meskrum's phone revealed why. Throughout the afternoon, she sent 17 increasingly desperate messages. For 22 p.m., we need to talk about this rationally. 5:15 p.m., please come back to the room. 6:48 p.m., your father has checked out. He's gone back to Gondar. 7:30 p.m., don't throw away our marriage over one mistake. 8:03 p.m., where are you? I'm worried. Abebe responded only once, at 7:12 p.m. I'll be back tonight. We'll discuss everything. Hotel surveillance shows him leaving the bar at 9:23 p.m., movements now visibly affected by alcohol. He purchased a final drink to go, carrying it toward the elevators. The last public footage shows him entering the elevator alone at 9:26 p.m., knife bulge visible against his jacket. Witness accounts tracked Abebe's psychological disintegration throughout the day. The bartender noted his progression from silent drinking to muttered self-conversation. Initially coherent comments about family loyalty devolved into fragmented phrases. My own father, repeated with increasing intensity. A hotel guest reported an elevator encounter at 6:40 p.m., describing Abebe as standing unnaturally still, staring at nothing, tears streaming down his face without any accompanying sound. When addressed, he appeared not to hear, focused on some internal reality. His digital footprint revealed cognitive collapse. Between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., he conducted 23 internet searches on his phone. Wife cheating with father. Honor-killing laws Ethiopia. Fastest way to divorce. How to forgive unforgivable betrayal. Maximum prison sentence murder Ethiopia. These searches suggest consideration of multiple responses, from legal separation to violence. His mind cycling through options with decreasing rationality. Phone records show 3 attempted calls to his mother in Gondar, none completed. A single text to his closest friend read only. A man cannot live with this shame. By 9 p.m., witnesses described behavioral indicators consistent with dissociative state, vacant expression, mechanical movements, and diminished environmental awareness. The psychological term for this condition is particularly relevant. Acute stress-induced temporary insanity, a state where rational thought ceases entirely. A timeline reconstructed from security footage, electronic records, and witness statements reveals the progression toward murder. 1:42 p.m., Abebe discovers affair 2:17 p.m., exits hotel 2:45 p.m., purchases knife 3:30 p.m., returns to hotel 4:38 p.m., begins drinking at bar 7:12 p.m., sends final text to Meskrem 9:26 p.m., enters elevator to room 9:31 p.m., keycard registers at room door 9:33 to 10:47 p.m. Murder occurs. Estimated from forensic evidence, 11:02 p.m. Abebe exits hotel through service entrance 11:15 p.m. Last confirmed sighting, taxi stand 3 blocks away, 11:16 p.m. to present, whereabouts unknown. Room 307 told its own tragic story through physical evidence. Police photographs documented systematic destruction, shattered mirrors, overturned furniture, and torn curtains indicating a chaotic struggle. Blood spatter analysis revealed multiple impact points consistent with movement throughout the room. The primary crime scene centered on the bed, where Meskrum's body was discovered. Hotel sheets, originally white, had absorbed extensive blood loss. Defensive wounds on her hands and forearms indicated she had attempted to protect herself. Broken fingernails and skin samples under them suggested she fought back against her attacker. The bathroom contained secondary evidence, a smashed phone in the toilet and bloody handprints on the shower wall. A wine bottle lay broken near the bathroom threshold, glass fragments suggesting it was the first weapon used before the knife. Personal items held additional significance. Meskrum's suitcase remained packed in the closet. Her wedding ring was found removed, and placed deliberately on the nightstand. Hotel stationery, partially bloodstained, contained a handwritten note from Abebe. "I gave you everything. You chose my father. There is no forgiveness for this." Most telling was what investigators didn't find: the murder weapon. The knife purchased earlier was absent, presumably taken by Abebe when he fled, suggesting awareness of its evidentiary significance. Forensic analysis established a comprehensive murder timeline. When Abebe entered at 9:31 p.m., Mescrum was preparing for bed, wearing night clothes. Initial confrontation occurred near the room entrance, evidenced by knocked-over chairs and broken decorative items. The first physical attack happened approximately 9:40 p.m., beginning with blunt force trauma. Wine bottle glass fragments embedded in Mescrum's scalp indicated he struck her first with this improvised weapon. The blow, while injurious, was not fatal. What followed was a protracted assault lasting over an hour. Blood evidence showed Mescrum initially fled toward the bathroom, then was dragged back to the main room. Multiple impact points throughout the space revealed she repeatedly attempted escape. The killing culminated on the bed, where 27 separate stab wounds were inflicted. Wound patterns demonstrated escalating violence. Initial strikes hesitant and superficial, later ones penetrating vital organs with increasing force. The fatal wound pierced her heart, occurring approximately 10:47 p.m. based on blood coagulation analysis. Post-mortem evidence indicated Abebe remained in the room nearly 15 minutes after Mescrum's death. During this period, he wrote his confession note, arranged her wedding ring symbolically, and methodically wiped down certain surfaces, suggesting partial return of rational thought following the frenzied attack. Tekel's absence during the murder proved consequential both legally and psychologically. Flight records confirmed his departure from Addis Ababa at 5:47 p.m., nearly 4 hours before the killing. His hasty checkout occurred at 3:22 p.m., less than 2 hours after the initial confrontation. This rapid departure became central to subsequent legal proceedings. Prosecution argued his abandonment constituted moral cowardice and tacit acknowledgement of culpability. Defense attorneys countered that Tekel's exit demonstrated responsible crisis management, removing himself from an explosive situation. Phone records revealed Tekel made 6 calls to Mescrum between departure and murder. The final conversation, lasting 22 minutes, ended at 8:14 p.m., approximately 90 minutes before Abebe returned to the room. Hotel guests in adjacent rooms reported hearing a woman's raised voice during this time frame, suggesting a heated phone exchange. Tekel later claimed he advised Mescrum to leave immediately, offering financial assistance for separate accommodations. Text messages partially corroborated this account. "The transfer is complete. Take a taxi directly to the airport. Don't wait for him to return." Most significant was what Tekel didn't do. He never contacted authorities about potential danger, never alerted hotel security to concerns about his son's state, and never warned Mescrum about the knife purchase he claimed to have witnessed from across the market. Dr. Eleni Abraha, forensic psychologist specializing in domestic violence at Addis Ababa University, provides context for understanding this crime. What distinguishes passionate homicide from calculated murder isn't necessarily the presence or absence of planning, but rather the emotional state driving the behavior. Research identifies key patterns in crimes like Abebe's. The triple betrayal factor, simultaneous loss of spouse, parent, and identity, creates particularly volatile psychological conditions. Studies show that murders involving family betrayal typically exhibit specific characteristics. The excessive violence, 27 stab wounds when one would be fatal, indicates symbolic destruction rather than merely causing death, Dr. Abraha explains. Each wound represents an attempt to eliminate the psychological pain through physical action. Cultural factors significantly impact likelihood of violent response. In societies emphasizing male honor, discovery of infidelity increases homicide risk by 41% compared to cultures with less rigid gender expectations. The arrangement of symbolic items post-murder, the wedding ring placement, the written confession, represents attempted meaning-making, Dr. Abraha notes. The perpetrator tries to transform senseless violence into comprehensible narrative. Most critical for prevention, research identifies a typical 4 to 8 hour window between discovery and violence. Crucial intervention time when authorities, friends, or family might prevent tragedy if alerted to relationship dissolution involving cultural shame components. Housekeeping supervisor Tigist Bekele knocked on room 307 at 11:42 a.m., responding to guests' complaints about a persistent water leak affecting the floor below. After 3 unanswered knocks, she used her master key, calling out housekeeping as standard protocol. The door opened to immediate sensory assault. The metallic scent of blood mixed with the distinct odor of death. Tigist immediately backed out, radioing security before other guests could glimpse inside. Her 23 years of hotel experience had never prepared her for such a scene. Hotel security officer Jonas Alamehu secured the area within minutes, establishing a perimeter while activating emergency protocols. His incident report noted, female victim on bed, multiple visible wounds, no signs of life, room in complete disarray. First responders arrived at 11:57 a.m., pronouncing Mescarum dead at the scene. Paramedic logs documented rigor mortis present, indicating death occurred approximately 12 to 14 hours prior to discovery. The hotel manager contacted registered guest Abebe via cell phone repeatedly without success. His absence immediately raised questions, especially after staff recalled his disheveled state the previous evening. Most difficult was identifying Mescarum officially, her face nearly unrecognizable due to trauma. Confirmation ultimately came through fingerprint matching against her government identification records rather than visual recognition. Addis Ababa police deployed their serious crimes unit, establishing command center operations directly within the hotel. Detective Inspector Meliku took lead, implementing systematic evidence collection protocols. Forensic teams documented 137 blood spatter patterns, creating comprehensive trajectory mapping to reconstruct attack sequences. They recovered partial fingerprints from 17 surfaces, including the bathroom mirror, wine bottle fragments, and door frames. Digital forensics yielded crucial timeline evidence, recovering deleted messages from Mescarum's phone revealing communications with both Abebe and Tekle. Location data tracked movements of all 3 individuals throughout the vacation. The most significant investigative breakthrough came through transportation records. Abebe's taxicab driver from the night of the murder recognized his photo on news reports, contacting authorities voluntarily. His testimony placed Abebe at a private airstrip outside Addis Ababa at 1:30 a.m., suggesting escape via unauthorized flight. International alerts distributed Abebe's identification to border checkpoints across East Africa. Despite extensive manhunt operations involving Ethiopian Federal Police and Interpol, he remained at large when the investigation concluded its active phase after 63 days. Both families fractured in the tragedy's aftermath. Mescarum's parents publicly disowned Tekle, holding him equally responsible for their daughter's death. Their formal statement declared, "2 men destroyed our child, one with a knife, one with betrayal." Tekle's wife separated from him within weeks, moving to relatives in Canada. His business partnerships dissolved as associates distanced themselves from the scandal. He eventually sold his Gondar properties at significant loss, relocating to Djibouti. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church congregation, where both families had worshipped, held prayer services addressing the trauma collectively. The priest's sermon emphasized reconciliation while acknowledging justice requirements, a delicate balance reflecting community tensions. Most profound was the ripple effect through Gondar's social fabric. 3 additional divorces occurred among couples in their immediate social circle within months. Preventative separations to address previously ignored relationship problems. Ethiopian media coverage generated national debate about marriage counseling accessibility and domestic violence intervention, prompting government review of family support resources and violence prevention programs. Ethiopian prosecutors filed formal murder charges against Abebe in absentia, classifying the crime as first-degree homicide with special circumstances of domestic relationship. The court rejected defense petitions claiming temporary insanity due to evidence of weapon procurement indicating premeditation. A secondary criminal complaint named Tekle as accessory before the fact, citing his failure to warn authorities about potential violence despite witnessing the knife purchase. His legal team secured dismissal of these charges through documented flight records and phone warnings to Mescarum. The court imposed maximum sentence on Abebe, death penalty convertible to life imprisonment without parole upon surrender or capture. His assets were frozen and allocated to Mescarum's family as partial compensation. Dr. Maya Teshome, clinical psychologist specializing in family dynamics at Harvard University, analyzed the relationship patterns that culminated in this tragedy. This case demonstrates a classic triangulation pattern with particularly lethal outcomes due to family entanglement. The psychological architecture of this triangle contained three distinct relationship distortions. First, the marriage exhibited emotional detachment syndrome. Abebe and Mescrum maintained external appearances while internally disconnecting. Their communication had deteriorated to transactional exchanges rather than authentic sharing. This created vulnerability to outside emotional fulfillment. Second, father and son displayed competitive masculine identity. Tekel consistently undermined Abebe's achievements, establishing dominance patterns that extended beyond business into personal realms. This psychological competition created perfect conditions for viewing Mescrum as a conquest rather than family. Third, Mescrum and Tekel formed a validation-seeking alliance. She received the approval her husband withheld, while he recaptured youthful validation through her attraction. Their relationship fulfilled complementary psychological needs. The most dangerous element was the double betrayal effect, explains Dr. Teshome. When betrayal occurs within family systems, it damages both the specific relationship and the entire identity framework of the betrayed individual. Abebe lost not only his wife, but his foundational understanding of family itself. The psychological power imbalance between Tekel and Mescrum deserves particular attention. Their age difference created inherent authority disparity, amplified by cultural deference expectations. This dynamic raises questions about genuine consent versus psychological manipulation, a distinction lost in the subsequent tragedy but critical for understanding similar relationship patterns. Ethiopian cultural context created specific pressure points that intensified this family tragedy. Professor Mekonnen Abebe, anthropologist at Addis Ababa University, identifies several relevant cultural dynamics. Ethiopian familial structures emphasize hierarchy and respect for elders, creating complex power relationships between fathers and adult sons. This hierarchy extends to daughters-in-law, who traditionally occupy subordinate positions within extended family systems. Public perception remains paramount in Ethiopian communities. Maintaining respectable appearances often takes precedence over addressing relationship problems, creating environments where issues fester rather than resolve constructively. Masculine honor carries particular weight within Ethiopian society. A man's social standing connects directly to his ability to maintain family order and control. When this control appears compromised, especially through female infidelity, cultural responses often emphasize decisive action to restore reputation. Ethiopian marriage traditionally functions as family alliance rather than merely individual partnership. This framework makes betrayal a transgression against entire kinship networks, magnifying its social impact beyond the immediate relationship. Most significantly, Ethiopian conflict resolution typically involves community mediation rather than professional counseling. Without culturally appropriate therapeutic resources, family tensions frequently remain unaddressed until crisis points emerge. These cultural factors didn't cause the violence, Professor Mekonnen emphasizes, but they created specific pressure points that, when activated simultaneously, overwhelmed traditional restraint mechanisms within this family system. Multiple warning indicators preceded the violence, each representing potential intervention points. 1. Isolation behaviors. Abebe progressively withdrew from friends during the months before the vacation, declining social invitations and reducing community engagement. 2. Financial control shifts. Bank records showed Abebe transferring significant assets to individual accounts, separating previously joint resources. 3. Increased alcohol consumption. Hotel staff noted his alcohol tolerance suggested recent increased usage, often signaling self-medication for emotional distress. 4. Physical manifestations of stress. Colleagues reported Abebe's weight loss, sleep disturbances, and concentration problems in meetings. 5. Explicit threats. His internet search history included phrases like "how to make someone disappear" and "countries without extradition treaties." 6. Boundary violations. Tekel's pattern of undermining his son's authority extended beyond normal parental guidance into inappropriate territory. 7. Previous conflict escalation. Family members later revealed an incident 6 months earlier where Abebe destroyed household items during an argument, behavior dismissed as work stress. These warning signs, viewed collectively rather than individually, created a predictable pathway toward violence that attentive intervention might have interrupted. Do you know someone in a dangerous relationship? The warning signs we've discussed aren't just academic concepts. They're real-world indicators that could save lives. Share this video with someone who might benefit from recognizing these patterns before tragedy strikes. Relationship violence rarely emerges without preceding signals. The knowledge you've gained today might help you identify when someone needs intervention or support. One shared video could be the catalyst that helps someone recognize their situation requires immediate action. Your simple click could create a chain reaction of awareness. Share now, because understanding the psychology of relationship violence isn't just educational. It's potentially life-saving information someone in your network desperately needs. Trust forms the foundation of human connection. In the story of Abebe, Meskerum, and Tekel, we witness how its destruction creates catastrophic consequences extending far beyond the individuals directly involved. Trust functions like emotional infrastructure. Invisible when intact, yet its collapse brings down entire relationship systems. Each betrayal in this Ethiopian tragedy compounded upon others. Meskerum broke Abebe's trust through infidelity. Tekel violated his son's trust through familial betrayal. Their combined actions destroyed Abebe's trust in social order itself. When multiple trust violations occur simultaneously, the psychological impact exceeds the capacity for rational processing. The human mind, structured to maintain coherent narrative about relationships, cannot integrate such fundamental contradictions. For Abebe, reconciling his identities as husband and son became impossible when both roles suffered simultaneous invalidation. Perhaps most tragically, each person justified their actions through perspective distortion. Meskerum viewed her affair as personal fulfillment rather than betrayal. Tekel reframed his actions as genuine connection rather than parental violation. Abebe interpreted murder as justice rather than crime. Trust, once fractured, rarely repairs completely. But understanding its fragility might help us recognize when relationships reach dangerous breaking points, when small cracks risk becoming irreparable damage. In this knowledge lies the potential to prevent similar tragedies through intervention before trust collapses entirely. Recognizing relationship danger signs early might prevent tragic outcomes. Watch for these warning indicators. Sudden behavioral changes. Unexplained absences or schedule modifications without clear explanation, new secrecy around phone usage or password changes, defensive reactions to casual questions about activities, increased criticism of partner to friends or family. Emotional withdrawal patterns. Decreased physical affection or intimate connection, emotional responses that seem disproportionate to situations, increased attention-seeking from others outside the relationship, expressions of hopelessness about relationship future. Control mechanisms. Financial restrictions or sudden changes in spending habits, isolation attempts from family or support networks, technology monitoring or location tracking without consent, escalating jealousy or possessiveness. Communication breakdown. Avoidance of conflict through superficial agreement, decreased sharing of daily experiences or feelings, elimination of future planning, or joint goals discussion. A communication primarily focused on logistics rather than connection. Physical warning signs. Sleep disturbances, appetite changes, or other stress manifestations, increased substance use to manage emotional states, destruction of property during arguments. However minimal, any physical intimidation, regardless of whether contact occurs. These warning signs rarely appear in isolation. Their presence in clusters indicates relationship distress requiring immediate attention, professional intervention rather than private resolution, especially when emotions intensify or control issues emerge. Cultural context shapes relationship dynamics powerfully, yet personal responsibility for maintaining boundaries remains universal. This Ethiopian tragedy demonstrates how cultural expectations around masculinity, family hierarchy, and conflict resolution created pressure that conventional social structures couldn't contain. Every culture contains both protective and potentially harmful elements. The communal interconnection of Ethiopian society might have prevented this violence through early intervention, yet simultaneously created shame dynamics that accelerated its progress. Moving forward requires balancing cultural respect with recognition of universal human needs. Family bonds matter profoundly, but not at the expense of individual safety. Traditional values provide stability, yet must adapt to address modern relationship challenges. Most importantly, cultural context never justifies violence. Understanding cultural factors helps explain behavior, but never excuses it. Creating safer relationships across all cultures requires emphasizing universal principles: consent, respect, communication, and boundaries. These lessons transcend Ethiopian borders, applying to relationships worldwide where cultural pressures intersect with personal choices, sometimes with devastating consequences. This is just one of many stories where passion turned deadly. Behind every crime statistic lies complex human psychology. Understanding these patterns could potentially save lives. Subscribe now to True Crime Dossier, where we examine the darkest moments of human behavior to extract vital lessons. Each episode provides insights into relationship psychology, warning signs, and prevention strategies drawn from real cases. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another episode that might contain the exact information you or someone you care about needs to hear. True Crime Dossier, because understanding the psychology behind tragedy is the first step toward preventing it in your own life.